When I was 14, I had the biggest crush on this girl that went to the same church as me. And I wanted to do whatever it took to get her because I thought she was so beautiful. I thought she was the most attractive thing I had ever seen. And I was super active in my church. Church was a really big part of my life. I essentially grew up in the church. I'm the son of two ministers of the gospel. So it kind of made sense to me that this is the direction my life would go in. Not that I was thinking so much about my life in general. Again, I was just 14. But for that time in my life, I genuinely thought, yeah, this is the kind of girl that I need in my life. She's super pretty, she's awesome, blah, blah. And I had a brilliant idea. I had heard someone somewhere, I can't even remember right now, say something about how a woman's phone is a reflection of who she is as a person, her personality, her preferences, her likes, her dislikes, blah, blah. I can't remember where I got that information from, but I always had it in the back of my head that a woman's phone, if you were to get a hold of it, would be essentially be like a mirror into understanding her more. So I decided in my mind at the time that it was a brilliant idea. It was a genius sent from the heavens kind of idea to find a way to get her to give me her phone so I could just like look through it, right? At this point in time, she and I were like cordial. We were not the best of friends or anything, obviously, not that I wanted that, but she was nice enough to me and we had some rapport, right? She would smile at me, that kind of thing, all these little things to give me some hope. So one of these Sundays, because the only way we could really communicate with each other was when we were like sitting next to each other. I was sitting in front of her at church during like teenage church service or whatever, because we had a little different section for our church, the church we went to at the time. And I decided one of those Sunday services, I would ask her for her phone and just kind of fiddle with it throughout that particular service. Now, why she trusts me with her phone, I have no idea. I mean, we had some rapport, but looking back, maybe she did like me a little bit. It doesn't even matter. I took her phone, and the first place I went to was the gallery, right? Because I'm an idiot. Again, at the time, didn't know much about women. I would have probably made a lot more progress going through her messages, but I wasn't thinking that far. I definitely wasn't. I definitely hadn't even understood the power of texting at the time. So I went to her gallery, went through a bunch of photos, her personal photos, blah blah. But then I realized that she had like 1,000 plus of these memes. Now I'm probably gonna be showing my age by talking about this, but back in my day, this is back when phones weren't even smart yet. I don't think smartphones existed. We were using like Samsungs, old school Samsung, Siemens, and Nokia's and Motorola's phones like that. Back in those days, those phones didn't even have Bluetooth, right? And that's important for what I'm about to say. She had a bunch of photos, but not like candid photos or taken photos, like memes. Back in the day, we had these caption memes with absolutely no pictures behind them, right? Sometimes it would be pictures, sometimes it wouldn't be. Most times it wouldn't be any pictures, like it kind of evolved into later when Facebook became popular. But it was mostly just like some quote that whoever the fuck on the internet thought was the biggest, most deep thing ever, right? And it would be something like just a quote about how they feel about something or something they feel strongly. And it's around the same kind of topics all the time: the betrayal, loyalty, despair, getting fucked over, just dumb shit like that. If you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like that kind of nonsense. But she had 1,000 plus of these, and I realized a good portion of them were relationship centered. It was always stuff about how she wanted to be treated this way by a guy. She wanted to be done this way by a guy. She wanted to experience these particular things by a guy. These are the things she wishes she could say to a guy. Like I remember this particular one. It was like a GIF. It was animated. So it was like looking at a girl's text messaging phone through the girl's eyes, like because the corners of the photo was a woman's eyelashes, right? So clearly that's the woman's POV. And she's looking at a text from a guy that goes, "Hey, how are you?" And then she writes this giant paragraph about how she wants to be loved by the guy and held and protected and safe. And then she deletes all of it and just goes, "I'm fine. How are you?" Right? That kind of thing. We're just very Facebook 2011 ish, right? So I decided, okay, you know what? This is a gold mine of information. All these photos that she has clearly stored because she cares about them deeply and she feels like they're a reflection of what she feels like. I'm just going to take all these photos, put them in my phone and go study them in my own free time. Right? You see, I'm thinking here, right? I'm thinking. So I took all those photos, which was painstaking, right? Mind you, again, we didn't have Bluetooth back in these days. I was using a Nokia 6070. Please go and Google that phone and know what it looks like. Nokia 6070. And I put her phone next to mine and transferred all those photos via infrared, which took forever. I remember not even actually completing it. I think there was like another 200 photos that I couldn't get because, her mom had to go and she had to leave. And I just kind of like, okay, I'll see you next Sunday. But I thought, you know what? I got enough photos. I'm going to go study. So I went to go study. I went home and I looked at all those photos and I'm studying all of them. Like, okay, this is the kind of thing she wants. This is the kind of thing she likes. This is how she feels. I'm going to embody this guy that she wishes she could experience. And I'm going to become this guy for her. This was my brilliant idea. There was just one problem with my plan. There's just one major obstacle I had to go through. And that was my own friend. For the sake of this story, we're going to call him John. Obviously, John wasn't his name, but we're going to call him John. John was, let's say, in church, my best friend, but also the better version of me. He was 2 years older. He was slightly taller, better muscle definition, way more handsome, better hygiene, right? Amazing fashion sense. I'm not even kidding. Looking back even now, this kid was a few years ahead of the rest of us when it came to just dressing. He always had a different pair of all-star shoes whenever he came to church. This is back in the day where all-stars were the shoes, right? Again, showing my age by saying this, but those were the shoes at some point, right? And he had a different pair every Sunday, different color. It was great. He was that guy. In fact, he was so attractive, again, just being like a 16-year-old at the time, that even though I didn't know what was happening at the time, looking back at it, I realized now a bunch of older women in their sexual prime were trying to hit on this kid. It was that serious. He was that guy. Like, thinking back at it, right? I didn't know what was going on at the time. I was completely clueless. But there were women in their sexual prime, 22, 23-year-olds that were like, oh my God, this guy is cute. Where are you from? Give me your phone number, right? We'll talk about that later. Anyway, I eventually realized, okay, this is a big deal because every time I talked to Eliza, things would go relatively well. But whenever I saw her speaking to John, it was clear she was a little more excited by him. And in fact, a lot of the time when she and I spoke, she was mostly asking me about him. She was always more curious about him, what he was up to, what he was doing, if he had said anything about her, stuff like that. Now, John himself didn't give a fuck. Again, super attractive guy, did not care. He had his own life to live. In fact, low key, I called him Sasuke because he had essentially the same tragic life as Sasuke did. Lost both his parents very young. To begin with, both his parents were very old. They had him when they were in like their 60s or 70s. He was the last of like 8 girls, and he lost both his parents in the same car accident, right? So a lot of what made him so mysterious was his moodiness, really. He wasn't the happiest kid. But again, moody, mysterious, who cares? Women find that attractive. And I knew immediately that he was gonna be a massive obstacle. I needed to get this kid out of her mind and put myself, in her mind as the guy that she wanted. I just knew he was competition. So I had gone through that entire process of gathering all that information, all those photos from her phone, and I began to mold myself into the kind of guy that I thought she wanted, the guy that, she had painted from all those memes she had collected. Over the course of a few weeks, I began to test out all these things, say all these different things that were emotionally relevant to her, do all the kind of things that I thought from the memes were gonna work with her, offer her this, offer her that, buy her this, buy her that, like borrow money from my parents to do this, right? Because I'm a teenager in Nigeria, so like I have access to an income yet or anything like that. But I had done all these things to try to get myself in that position and get her to forget my friend John. Needless to say, none of it worked. In fact, not only did it not work, I was going deeper and deeper and deeper into the friend zone. Like, now it was becoming clear. Not only was she not giving me any like real romantic signals anymore, she was straight up treating me like the bro. She was treating me like her friend. And it got me so confused and so frustrated. In fact, at some point, check this out, a New Year's service came through. This is, like last service of the year slash first service of the year, 31st night it was called. And I'll never forget, at the end of it, when everyone's going Happy New Year, she comes up to me and John because we're sitting next to each other. She plants a kiss on my cheek first, but then she plants a kiss on his cheek closer to his mouth for a longer period of time. Now, I was just so excited to get some kind of validation from her. I was happy. I was like, oh my God, yeah. I was, being erratic about it. My friend John obviously was just super cool and chill. He was like, you're acting like a goofy right now. Chill the fuck out, right? It didn't take me until I got home that day and like obviously slept through the whole thing because it's an all-night service and you have to sleep during the day when you get back home. After waking up from my nap, I realized, oh my God, she gave me the consolation prize of kisses. Like mine didn't even matter. She just did it to not make me feel so awkward or bad for who she actually wanted to send her real sexual advances and signals to, which was my friend John. All right. So I felt like a real, goofy after that. I felt really goofy, very dumb, and very frustrated. Like, oh my God, I had put in so much effort, so much work to try to get this girl's attention. And it looked like everything I was doing was pushing her further into the arms of my friend John. Again, I didn't hate my friend John. I didn't think he was a bad person. I was just frustrated at the fact, like, yo, what else can I do? I have done everything right. I have molded myself into the guy from her fucking fantasies. And yet, none of it was working. None of it was making any progress for me. And none of it was making any sense in the long run. This guy that was absolutely doing nothing, not even caring about her, was making so much more progress with her in such a shorter period of time. It made no sense to me. I was damn near at the verge of tears. Okay, I probably did cry a few tears, but don't forget I told you that. I was just like frustrated, man. Like, what the fuck can I do from here? I thought about it. I try to look around for where I could get help from this, and I'm an only child. I didn't exactly have like a big brother or anything to look up to. I had a big cousins really, but they were female, and a lot of the advice they gave me just didn't sound right to me because I had already done most of it. Right, being honest with her, being emotionally relevant to her, or in like the emotionally vulnerable way, right? My own version or thinking or idea of vulnerability at the time, just being relationship focused. None of it seemed to work. I had already done all that. So I had to come to the very painful conclusion of what I had to do next. And it took everything in me to kill my pride to do this. I had to literally put my ego to the side and ask for help from the person that was hindering my progress, my friend John. I'd throw my hands up and be like, you know what? If you can't beat them, get advice from them. So the very next Sunday, I go over to him. We were going to sit next to each other like we had always done, regardless. But I went up to him before service started and I was like, listen, man, remember what happened last week? She kissed you on the cheek. She kissed me on the cheek. I thought about it. She clearly likes you more. I don't even know why I'm wasting my time with this girl. But I like this girl. And I know you don't even care about her. So what do I do here? Like, help me. Why does she like you more than me? And then he had this little smirk on his face. It was the first time I had even seen like real, happiness really on his face. He sat me down and he began to give me advice. And he said, this is why this girl doesn't like you, and this is why she probably likes me. You dress like this, you talk like this, you walk like this, you in general act like this. You embody someone that she cannot like. And he dropped some serious game on me. Serious game on me. And I wasn't happy hearing all of it. Genuinely, I wasn't happy. In fact, a lot of it sounded like bad news. A lot of it sounded like, oh my God, this is how you've thought of me the entire time you didn't tell me? Why didn't you tell me? He essentially told me I was a fucking goofball and a loser, and I didn't deserve to be liked. That's essentially what he told me. And I had to bite down on my own tongue to just listen to this. But at the end of it, I realized, man, what he's suggesting is that I have a complete overhaul of who I am as a person to become more attractive. And I'm like, damn, that sounds hard and that sounds inconvenient. I have to essentially just become you to get this girl. So I took his advice. It wasn't easy. I didn't like it. A lot of it was it didn't sound like it made any sense to me. Like he would tell me, for instance, he told me, for instance, just sit down in one place for the entire service and don't move. Because I was always energetic. I was a very dynamic kid. I kind of still am, right? But he told me just sit down in one spot. I've never seen you, Jason. I've never seen you sit down in one spot the entire service, the entire 4 or 5 hour service. You've only ever seen me get up from my seat to go use the bathroom, maybe once or twice. But you are always moving. You are always jumping up and down. People ask you for a favor, you're popping out of your seat and going to do something. You think of yourself as both the youth pastor and usher and seat arranger and everything. You're the one guy that's trying to like stack up all the chairs after service. Stop being that guy. Stop it. Say no when they ask you to do all that stuff. Just be fucking chill. Stay in one place. Be still. And I remember hearing that and going, damn, okay, that doesn't sound that hard until I had to do it the following Sundays. And I realized, shit, this was difficult to do. This was not easy. This was not as easy to do as I thought it was. Plus, I also realized saying no to people was not as easy as I thought it was either. Because I went from, oh, I'm happy to help with anything, sister this or brother that, to like, no, I'm cool. And I had people not only take offense to the point where they were fucking telling on me to my mother, who was a deaconess at the time at this church, but also just asking me weird questions like, are you okay? Are you feeling sick? And I remember thinking, this is weird, but you know what? This is interesting. My attitude had changed, my demeanor had changed, and that had changed the way people were treating me. Huh. Fast forward a few weeks later, I'm now making way more progress with Liza than I ever thought I could. At this point, not only has she given me her number and her Facebook and try to talk to me and text me all that and different other things, we had gotten to the point where we were so, how do I say this, sexually compatible that we were making out in like the back of the church where no one could see us, right? That was we had a makeout spot in church. Lord forgive us. But that was how much progress I had made with this girl. I ended up dating this girl for quite a while. Long story short, we ended up breaking up. I'll probably have to make an entire video about that. But yeah, it worked. That was the sad thing about the advice I got from my friend John, is that everything he said, as weird as it was, as weird as it sounded, actually worked. And it broke my mind for the longest time because it made me realize very quickly, long before I even found out what game and pickup was, that if you change the way you behave, people change the way they behave towards you, especially women. That was the beginning of my launch in the game. And that's why I consider this friend of mine, John, my very first mentor. So yeah, that's the story. That's where I kind of got my start in understanding how women worked. Stick around for more. It's been just your favorite scientist. With all this information, what you must.